Hey guys, today we're going to kind of review what proportional relationships are related to graphs. So I'm going to go over a bunch of things that we talked about that'll help you get ready for a quiz or test on proportional relationships. Okay, so the first thing in class we talked about some different ways to tell if something is proportional, especially when you're graphing a relationship. The first way is if you actually graph it, it has to form a straight line. It has to be linear and it has to go through 0, 0. Okay, so it has to be linear and go through 0, 0. So what that means, okay, so if I draw a line like this, okay, it forms a straight line, but it does not go through the origin. So this one would not be proportional. Okay, if I drew another one like this, okay, it is a line and it goes through 0, 0. So this one would be proportional. Okay, now I could draw another one like this. Okay, kind of like a U shape. It goes through 0, 0, but it is not a straight line, so that one is not proportional. Okay, so that's kind of how you can tell if you have a graph if it's proportional or not. Okay, another way to test to see if it's proportional is by looking at its equation. Okay, so if you wrote an equation for a situation, the equation has to be multiplying by a constant rate. Okay, so it has to have multiplying. Okay, so again, I'm going to show you an example. All right, so I might have an equation that looks like this, y equals 2x. Okay, this tells me that I'm multiplying by 2 every single time, so that is proportional. Now, if I had one like this, y equals 2x plus 3, this would not be proportional because I'm adding something extra on. So this one is not proportional. It can only be multiplying by something. Okay, so again, if I'm multiplying by that same constant factor, okay, it's proportional. If I add adding or subtracting something with it, it is not proportional. Okay, so I can check its graph, see if it's linear, go through 0, 0. I can look at its equation, and I can also, okay, look at a table. So, if I go ahead and make a table, okay, you can look at a table of points. So, it doesn't matter what you're working with. You could be working with number of pizzas, okay, and then the cost. Okay, a proportional relationship, if I give you some numbers, here's how you can test it. So let's say I have 0 pizzas cost 0, 1 pizza is 5, 2 is 10, 3 is 15, 4 is 20, 5 is 25. Okay, to test if it's a proportional relationship, you can set up a ratio of the two things you're working with. So I have 1 to 5, I can set that up. 2 to 10, 3 to 15, 4 to 20. Okay, and I can actually see, how do I get from 1 to 5? It's times 5. From 2 to 10, it's times 5. From 3 to 15, it's times 5. Okay, all of them are times 5 because it's $5 a pizza. So this would be a proportional relationship. Okay, so again, you can test the table. Okay, now sometimes it's not always nice numbers like that. Okay, so you don't always have quite as nice numbers. Okay, so here's an example of another table. I just filled in a couple points. I have some points. I want to see if this is proportional. So I can take the ratio. Okay, so I have 6 to 8, I have 15 to 18, 10 to 15. So I want to see, are these all the same? Well, what you can do is you can actually divide it out. So I can type in on my calculator 6 divided by 8, which is actually 0.75. I can do the same thing here, 15 divided by 18, which is 0.833, repeating, and 10 divided by 15, which is 0.6 repeating. Okay, now these all have different numbers when I divided them out. So this one is not proportional. Okay, so that one isn't. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a little situation, okay, and talk about a couple of things. All right, so let's say that I told you that it cost $12 for 3 rides at the fair. Okay, so I was going to the fair. It cost $12 for 3 rides. Okay, so the first thing that I would ask you to do is make a table of what you're working with. So I'm going to kind of draw a little table out. All right, and the first thing we always did in class is we talked about, well, what are the two things we're working with? Well, we're working with how much it costs and how many rides. Okay, a lot of you always ask, well, which do I put first in the table? Well, you have to figure out, well, what do you need to know to find the other one? Well, I need to know how many rides I went on to find the cost. So I'm going to put the rides up here and the cost down here. All right, now when we made a table, I told you that there's a couple points I always want you to find. And the first one I always want you to find is what if you had 0 and 1. Okay, those are the first two I always want you to use. Then, okay, the other ones you can use are what they gave you right away. So for 3 rides, I can fill that in. I know it costs $12. Okay, using that 3 rides cost $12. I could, if I know how much 3 rides cost, I could figure out how much 6 rides cost. It's just double. From 3 to 6 is double, so double the price would be 24. Okay, I could figure out some more. I could figure out how much 9 rides cost. From 3 to 9 it's triple, so triple the price, and I would get 36. Okay, same thing. I could use, I could figure out how much 12. Okay, this time maybe I'll go from 6 to 12. Double 6's price, which would be 48. Okay, so I could figure out a bunch of different numbers that I could use. Now, I want to know, well, how much would 0 rides cost? Well, if I don't go on any rides, it's not going to cost me anything. What about 1 ride? So again, let's kind of think about this. I know it's $12 for 3 rides. I want to know how much is it for just 1 ride. Okay, so I'm just going to divide by 3, split it into thirds, and I get $4, so it's $4 for 1 ride there. Okay, so now I could figure out a bunch of different things. I could figure out how much 2 rides cost. If 1 costs 4, 2 would cost $8. Okay, what if I asked you how much X rides cost? So any number of rides that I went on. Okay, well, I can figure that out by thinking, well, it's $3 for every single ride. So I can take 3 times however many rides I go on, which we called X. So I can write that as 3 times X, which is the same as 3X. All right, now the next thing that I would ask you to do is actually graph it. Okay, so I'm going to kind of look at a graph. Now, the first thing you guys need to do is label. I'm working with how many rides I go on and how much they cost. Okay, so I'm going to put those over here on the side. Okay, now I know 0's in the middle. Okay, for rides, if I look at how many rides I want to count by, it looks like I can just count by 1s or 2s. Okay, I have a lot of lines here, so I'm just going to count by 1s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That should be good. Okay, and now the cost, if I look at my numbers in the table, it looks like my cost is like, these are all multiples of 4, so I'm going to count by 4s. So I'm going to go 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32. Okay, so again, I'm going to count by 4s. And that made sense because if you looked at your cost, I know 4 goes into 4, 4 goes into 12, 4 goes into all of those numbers. That's why I counted by 4. So now I'm going to graph it. Okay, so we're going to graph these points. So I know that 0 rides cost $0. Okay, 1 ride cost 4. That was in my table. I know 2 rides cost 8. That was in the table. 3 rides, now if we go back to our table, 3 rides cost $12. So 3 rides was 12. We didn't figure out 4 rides, but we knew 6 rides was 24. So I'll just come over here. 6 rides was 24. We figured out 9 rides was 36. I better have to count a little more. 9 is 36. Okay, and I didn't figure out these other points in between, right over here. But that's okay. It's going to form a straight line. It's linear. So I'm going to connect it and extend it. All right, so now I graphed it, and I should put a title, so I'm just going to move my title over here. I don't have room. We can say the fare cost. Okay, so again, there's my title. Now, the next thing that I always ask you guys to do is find the slope. Okay, to find the slope, you want to pick 2 nice points. So I'm going to pick 2 points that are nice together. Okay, to find the slope, we always took the rise over the run. Okay, so we want to see how much did I go up between these 2 points. Well, I'm going to look. It looks like I went up 1 line, but I was actually counting by 4s. So I went up 4, and I went over 1, because I was counting by 1s. So my slope is 4 over 1. Okay, now there's something very important about slope. Okay, slope is actually the same as a unit rate. It actually tells us, well, how much does it just cost for 1 ride? Just $4. Okay, so it actually tells us it's $4 per ride. That's what the slope tells us. Okay, now the last thing that I would ask you to do is write an equation for this. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out my cost. So I'm going to write my cost equals. Well, I know to find my cost, it's 4 times however many rides I go on. So I can call it 4 times R or 4 times X, however many rides I go on. Now, the only other other thing you need to tell me is, what do these letters stand for? So I'm going to say that my C stood for cost, and my X is however many rides I went on. Okay? So however many rides I go on. So now I could use my equation. What if I said I went on 3 rides? Well, I could just do 4 times 3, because I went on 3 rides. That gives me 12. Okay, so here is my equation. Now I'd ask you too, is this a proportional relationship? Well, look at the equation. By looking at that, yes, it's proportional. Look at my graph. It's linear. It goes through the origin, so yes, it's proportional there. If you look at our table, it's times 4 every time. Times 4, times 4. It's always times 4 every time. So yes, this relationship is proportional. Okay, it's changing by the same amount, the equation, the table, the cost. All right, so that's a quick overview of proportional relationships. Okay, if you have any other questions, please see me, okay, during the study hall.